Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare. Jai Prabhupada, Jai Prabhupada. Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Gurudeva, Jaya Gurudeva. Gurudeva, Jaya Gurudeva. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Samahita Bhaktivinoda ki jai. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namah. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadanti Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yutaha Padakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavascha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatanitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakanitamsha. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namaste. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama Rama Rama. Hare Krishna, dear devotees, welcome to our regular Bhagavad Gita session. Today we will be discussing from the 15th chapter, the Purushottama Yoga, and we'll be beginning the chapter 15, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 shlokas we'll be discussing today. So quickly we will run through what happened in the 14th chapter. The 14th chapter, the title was The Three Modes of Material Nature, and in the beginning only Krishna says that this is considered as the most important knowledge. What is the most important knowledge? Knowing which are the modes, what are the impact of the mode, effect of the mode, the lakshana of the mode, the behavior, the characteristics of the mode, and how a person gets affected when he is prominent in a particular mode. What is his nature, what is his behavior, what is the impact it has on him because of the dominance of a particular mode on him. And then Krishna goes on to explain that how can we transcend the modes, and how can we transcend the modes. And then Arjuna asks the question that because when we understand that there is a mode of goodness, passion and ignorance, all three, although mode of goodness is the best of all, it is not spiritual. They are all in the material realm only. So beyond the three modes is the Shuddha Sattva state. That is a person who is transcended the three modes, is a Gunatita. So Arjuna goes on to explain that, ask the question to Krishna, telling that what is the behavior of such a person, how to attain a Gunatita position, what is the process of attaining a Gunatita position, what is his nature, what is his behavior, how does he act. So these kind of questions Arjuna put across us. And then Krishna explains that, so idea is, once a person reaches the process of the position of a Gunatita by the process of Bhakti Yoga, that is Krishna consciousness, then one gets freed from the cycle of birth and death and gets into the Brahma Bhuya Kalpate stage. So this way, so why Krishna says that this particular knowledge about the modes of material nature is very important according to me, like that Krishna says, because For us as living entities, as conditioned souls, it is very important to know when we are living in this, when you're trapped in this material world, uh, how is it working on me? How am I getting influenced by this material nature? What is that is influencing me? So what are the modes? And then when we understand the nature of different modes, the prominence of certain modes and its nature behavior, then we can for ourselves relate that where am I, which is the mode that is mostly I'm getting influenced by which particular mode, and then how to rise from that mode, and finally how to transcend the three modes. See, for us, when we are practicing this Krishna consciousness, we all want to go back to Godhead, we all want to be in a direct relationship with Krishna. See, now when we have that, and if you're serious about it, then there is something which we have to do about it. So at least we should know what is the ideal, what is the, and where somewhere we are here, the ideal is there, but somewhere there is a process that has been put across, and somewhere we should try traversing that path. In order to try to traverse that path of reaching the ideal, the position, the required for place, then we should know the process. So that knowledge is very important for us to understand that how is this material world working, and how I am getting influenced, and how I can transcend it. So Krishna says that in the 14th chapter, this knowledge is most beneficial. So now, what is the connection between the 14th and the 15th chapter? The 15th chapter is called as the Purushottama Yoga. That is the 14th chapter. It says that by transcending, it is very important to develop attachment to the Supreme Lord. Finally, it says that we need to, by transcending the modes, we need to develop that attachment to the Supreme Lord. When we are developing the attachment to the Supreme Lord, it is very important to consciously be detached from the material world. If we are having attachment to the material world, and we want to develop attachment to the Supreme Lord also, that can apparently seem to go on for some time, but when we consciously go through the process of detaching ourselves from the material world, then only attachment to the spiritual world or the Supreme Lord becomes more stronger. So developing the acts of detachment, that is one important topic of the 15th chapter. It teaches us how to develop that detachment from the material world. That is one topic. And another topic is how to understand the goal, the source, the objective. The Vedas is to know Krishna. The objective of all Vedas is to know Krishna, and it is not for our benefit, not for our to increase our sense of enjoyment. We cannot use the Vedas. The Vedas, purpose of the Vedas is to know the Supreme Personality of God. So with that, the 15th chapter starts. So we will begin it now. I will share my screen. Okay. Padma Mataji, yes.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandat Pranam.
Dandavats.
Bhagavanuvacha Urdhamulam Adha Shakham Ashvatam Prahuravyayam Chandamsi Yasya Parnani Yastam Veda Savedavet. Read the translation also, Mataji.
Yes, yes.
All those Prabhupada ki jai. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, it is said that there is an imperishable banyan tree that has its roots upwards and its branches down, and those leaves are the Vedic hymns. One who knows this tree is a knower of the Vedas.
Okay. So what we will do now is, I will tell you what this tree is about. Then we will read to the purport. Prabhupada has given long purports. So this material world is represented as an uprooted banyan tree, where a tree whose roots are up and the whole branches and other system is down. This is representation of the material world. Why it is uprooted? It is a reflection. Reflection means, it is to say that it is a reflection of the spiritual world. It is a reflection of the original tree. So in that representation, this the uprooted banyan tree represents the material world. Now, when there is a banyan tree, we are seeing its reflection. That reflection is the material world. Now, that reflection can be seen only when that tree is near some water reservoir, either banks of the lake, river, or wherever, there should be a water body on its bank. If the tree is there, then only we can see the reflection. If there is no water body, the tree's reflection cannot be seen. Similarly, when we say that this material world is there, the material world exists because of our desire. So the water reservoir, the water body is a representation of our desires actually. Because when I have desires, this material world exists for me. This material world exists for me because of to satisfy, fulfill my desires. So when there is no water body, there is no tree. Similarly, when there are no desires, then the material world does not exist for me. This is one understanding. Another understanding is when the tree is when we are seeing the reflection, that means there is an original tree, so only a reflection exists. So when there is a material world, then we understand there is an original spiritual world of reflection is the material world. So variegatedness, if we see something is there in the material world, we don't have to think that the spiritual world is barren or is like nothing is there. No interesting things are there. It is the reflection is so much variety is there in the reflection. That means the original source has so much more variety. So that is another understanding. And another understanding is when there is a reflection, the branches are down, and in the reflection, the branches are spread everywhere. In the reflection, the branches are little up and little down. Overall, the tree is reflection only, but there we have ups and downs inside the water. The position of the branches, they represent the position of the various species in the various planets. That is, we human beings are situated in the lower planets actually. The demigods, Gandharvas, Siddhas, Siddhalokas, they are Swargalokas, the different planetary systems which are more higher and more opulent than ours, and the more sophisticated human beings are there. So we normal human beings are in the lower planet. So the branches and its shakas represent that. And then the leaves, as it is told here, the leaves are the Vedic hymns. So one who knows history more of the Vedas. Vedas means idea is the green grown leaves. If you see one who is performing Vedic rituals for fruitive results is actually the reflection part of it. But the original understanding is the Vedas is for understanding the Supreme Personality of God. And then so then we see that how the different twigs represents the entire tree is representation of this material world, wherein we know that we have the senses, we have the sense objects, then we have the tanmatras, we have 24 elements. All this representation is in the representation of the reflection tree. And then Krishna goes on to explain that how to cut through this tree, how to cut through the tree, that is how to use the acts of detachment to get ourselves out from the bondage of this material world. That is the goal. So this 15th chapter focuses on how to get ourselves detached from this material by understanding how this material world is just a reflection of the spiritual world, and how this material world is binding each and every one of us, and how we are bound, and how to get out of this. Okay, we will, Sindhu Mataji, we can read the purport.
Yes, Mataji. Hare Krishna. Hare Bol. 15.1. Purport. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace. It's Bhaktivedanta Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. After the discussion of the importance of Bhakti Yoga, one may question, what about the Vedas? It is explained in this chapter that the purpose of Vedic study is to understand Krishna. Therefore, one who is in Krishna consciousness, who is engaged in devotional service, already knows the Vedas.
That is to say, Prabhupada says here that when we are practicing the process of Bhakti Yoga as given to us by Srila Prabhupada and our acharyas in the parampara, then we don't have to take a separate endeavor to learn the Vedas. Now for us, we have the scriptural books like the Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita, and we have other small books written by Srila Prabhupada. But these four, that is Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita, and what is the fourth one? And the Krishna book, like that. So when we have these are the scriptures for us. So when we understand through the explanations of the acharyas, these books, then we don't have to take a separate endeavor to read the Vedas. Yes, Mataji, continue.
Yes. The entanglement of this material world is compared here to a banyan tree. For one who is engaged in fruitive activities, there is no end to the banyan tree. He wanders from one branch to another, to another, to another. The tree of this material world has no end, and for one who is attached to this tree, there is no possibility of liberation. The Vedic hymns meant for elevating oneself are called the leaves of this tree. This tree's roots grow upward because they begin from where Brahma is located, the topmost planet of this universe. If one can understand this indestructible tree of illusion, then one can get out of it.
Yeah, so this understanding is very important, that when we see the reflection, there is no end to it. It just keeps going. It is because similarly, the entanglements of this material nature, the material world, is never ending. If we think by themselves they will end one day and I will go back to spiritual, that will not happen. Eternally, we will be in this material world only, going up and down through various species. So this is the reality. Only when there is a conscious effort to get ourselves detached, then there is an hope, and then our journey begins towards the spiritual world. But otherwise, if we are just remaining as the world takes us through, then as we see in the reflection, there is no end to the tree. Similarly, there is no end to cessation to this material world. It is eternal and it keeps going on. Yes, Mataji.
This process of extrication should be understood. In the previous chapters, it has been explained that there are many processes by which to get out of the material entanglement. And up to the 13th chapter, we have seen that devotional service to the Supreme Lord is the best way. Now, the basic principle of devotional service is detachment from material activities and attachment to the transcendental service of the Lord. The process of breaking attachment to the material world is discussed in the beginning of this chapter. The root of this material existence grows upward. This means that it begins from the total material substance, from the topmost planet of the universe. From there, the whole universe is expanded with so many branches representing the various planetary systems. The fruits represent the result of the living entities' activities, namely religion, economic development, sense gratification, and liberation.
So it is told that and like Prabhupada, no, in the Bhagavad Gita, if you see starting in the first chapter also, here, there, everywhere, he just says that the only the process is Bhakti Yoga, means to render devotional service to Supreme Lord, and by rendering devotional service to Supreme Lord, your life is perfected. So Prabhupada says is up to 13th chapter, devotion service is glorified. Here specifically, it has been told to us that how is this material world designed. So similar in the 14th chapter, it has told to us that what are the material modes, how are they impacting us, where are we lying, which mode is prominent on us, which is where we are getting influenced. So that knowledge is important, and also understanding that devotional service is the supreme. So attachment to Krishna is that consciously we need to get detached from the material world. So that has been explained here, is what Prabhupada is telling. Yes, Mataji.
Now, there is no ready experience in this world of a tree situated with its branches down and its roots upward. But there is such a thing. That tree can be found beside a reservoir of water. We can see that the trees on the bank reflect upon the water with their branches down and roots up. In other words, the tree of this material world is only a reflection of the real tree of the spiritual world. This reflection of the spiritual world is situated on desire, just as tree's reflection is situated on water. Desire is the cause of things being situated in this reflected material light. One who wants to get out of this material existence must know this tree thoroughly through analytical study. Then he can cut off his relationship with it.
You can continue.
This tree, being the reflection of the real tree, is an exact replica. Everything is there in the spiritual world. The impersonalists take Brahman to be the root of this material tree, and from the root, according to the Sankhya philosophy, come Prakriti, Purusha, and the 3 gunas, then the 5 gross elements, Pancha Mahabhuta, then the 10 senses, the Shendriya, mind, etc. In this way, they divide up the whole material world into 24 elements. If Brahman is the center of all the manifestations, then this material world is a manifestation of the center by 180 degrees. And the other 180 degrees constitute the spiritual world. The material world is the perverted reflection, so the spiritual world must have the same variegatedness. But in reality, the Prakriti is the external energy of the Supreme Lord, and the Purusha is the Supreme Lord himself. And that is explained in the Bhagavad Gita. Since this manifestation is material, it is temporary. A reflection is temporary, for it is sometimes seen and sometimes not seen. But the origin from where the reflection is reflected is eternal. The material reflection of the real tree has to be cut off. When it is said that a person knows the Vedas, it is assumed that he knows how to cut off attachment to this material world. If one knows that process, he actually knows the Vedas. One who is attracted by the ritualistic formulas of the Vedas is attracted by the beautiful green leaves of the tree. He does not exactly know the purpose of the Vedas. The purpose of the Vedas, as disclosed by the personality of Godhead himself, is to cut down this reflected tree and attain the real tree of the spiritual world.
Yeah, very beautiful.
Thank you,
Everything
Mataji. Hare
Prabhupada has
Krishna.
told in this purport, very clearly he has told. There is no confusion only. What he is telling is, first thing is, if there is a reflection, then there is something original, and whatever you see in the reflection is definitely there in the origin also. Second thing is, this material world is temporary in the sense that it gets created, it gets annihilated, it gets created, it gets annihilated. But the original point from which there is a reflection, that is always eternal. That is, spiritual world is always eternal. So, third thing, what happens is we have learned about Prakriti, Purusha, and the Jiva and the relationship with us, and how the Jiva is, how our Jiva desires, and then the Prakriti facilitates, and the Purusha sanctions. All this in detail from the 13th chapter we have gone through. So all this has been explained, and with this understanding, we understand that how this manifestation of this material energy is temporary. That is, the reflection is temporary. And as we were discussing that the purpose of the Vedas is to understand the goal of life. The goal of life is to be detached from this material world and get attached to the spiritual Lord and to the Supreme Lord. And that if we understand Veda, the purpose of Vedas as it is, then that is what it is. But if we are simply attracted to the ritualistic procedures of the Vedas and the benefits that we get from it, then we are not taking the right results. So if we know that process, actually know the Vedas. One who is attracted by ritualistic formulas of Vedas, attracted by the greens, is like the attraction of the green leaves of the tree. This is not the exact purpose of the Vedas. So this is what the essence of, so that 180 degree story is, like if we say the Brahman as a central point, then this part is this part is the material world and opposite is the spiritual world. And the 24 elements of the creation of this material world can be represented as different parts of the reflected tree. Okay. We'll go on to the next one. Krishnamurti Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Yeah.
अधश्चोर्ध्वं पृष्ठा तस्य शाखा गुणप्रवृद्ध विषयप्रवालाः अधश्च मूलान्यनुसन्ततानि कर्मानुबन्धीनि मनुष्यलोके.
Yeah,
Shall I read translation, Mataji?
Yes.
Translation by A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Prabhupada ki jai. The branches of these trees extend downward and upward, nourished by the 3 modes of material nature. The twigs are the objects of the senses. This tree also has roots going down, and these are bound to the fruitive actions of human society. Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna. So the trees, when we see a tree, we nourish the tree by different. If we see a plant, we nourish it by different gobar or whatever other things we put so that the tree gets nourished. Similarly, the reflection tree is nourished by the 3 modes of material nature. That is to say that when a jiva desires something, it gets facilitated for that action to perform by the three modes of material nature. So that is the way the three modes of material nature are nourishing the desires of the jiva, of the living entity, and because of the desire only the reflection is existing. That we understood from the first point. The twigs are the objects of the senses. That is, the trees different parts are how they are, we can represent them. The twigs are the objects of senses, and this tree has its roots upwards, and these are bound to the fruitive actions of the human society. That is, we get attached to the fruitive results of the material world. So that is its representation, because we are mapping the happenings of the material world with the reflection of the tree, the banyan tree. Okay, Pramila Mataji, you will read the purport.
Yes, Mataji. Hare Krishna. Thank you, Mataji.
Yes.
Purport. The description of the banyan tree is further explained here. Branches spread in all directions. The lower parts, they are variegated and manifestations of living entities, human beings, animals, horses, cows, dogs, cats, etc. These are situated on the lower parts of the branches, whereas on the upper parts are higher forms of living entities, the demigods, the Gandharvas, and many other higher species of life. As a tree is nourished by water, so this tree is nourished by the three modes of material nature. Sometimes we find that a tract of land is barren for want of sufficient water, and sometimes a tract is very green. Similarly, when a particular modes of material nature are proportionately greater in quantity, the different species of life are manifested accordingly.
Yeah, 1 second. So what happens is, as we discussed, the branches are in the reflection are moving, are up. Some branches are up and some branches are low below. That is, Prabhupada is mentioning. That means it is a representation of various planets and the inhabitants of different planets. That we in the earthly planet, we have these human beings, animals, horses, dogs. All these categories are much lower planets, and little above are the Gandharvas, the Kinnaras, the demigods, like that. So nonetheless, all of them are in the material realm only, because everybody is in the reflection only. So in the reflection, there is little up and it is little down, and we are nourished by the modes of material nature. And what else he said here is, sometimes we see that some place is more green and some place is less green. So that is all the impact effect of the different modes on the different places. All this in detail we have studied in the 14th chapter. Yes, Mataji, continue.
The twigs of the tree are considered by the sense objects. By development of the different modes of nature, we develop different senses, and by the senses, we enjoy different varieties of sense objects. The tips of the branches are the senses, the ears, nose, eyes, etc., which are attached to the enjoyment of different sense objects. The twigs are sound, form, touch, and so on, the sense objects. The subsidiary roots are attachments and aversions, which are byproducts of different varieties of suffering and sense enjoyment. The tendencies towards piety and impiety are considered to develop from these secondary roots, which spread in all directions. The real root is from Brahma Loka, and the other roots are in the human planetary systems. After one enjoys the results of virtuous activities in the upper planetary systems, he comes down to the earth and renews his karma of fruitive activities for promotion. This planet of human beings is considered the field of activities. Hare Krishna. Thank you.
This planet of human beings is the Mritya Loka, also it is called. So this is so it seems the demigods in the upper planets, they sometimes perform long tapasyas simply to take birth in the Mritya Loka. Because this Mritya Loka, this planet of the human beings is like a take-off position. Like sometimes they launch the different satellites like that, or rockets, something they launch, no? And that time they search for a position, a place from which the launch becomes easier and more lesser distance, like that. So some places are located here in India also. In Bangalore also we have a place. So from there the launch is that pad, the takeoff pad it is called. Similarly, in order to go back to back to Godhead, the planet of human beings is considered as a field of activities. So when we do some good activity, we go to the upper planetary systems, and once that is gets over up to Brahma Loka also, we come back to this Mrityuloka again. But in Mrityuloka, we have an opportunity and option to perfect our lives and go back to the spiritual world for good. So to go back to the spiritual world, finally, one has to come to the planet of the human beings only. So today we are in the planet. Suppose we were in the Swargaloka. From Swargaloka directly we cannot go, it seems, to the spiritual world. We have to come back to Mrityuloka, and from here the takeoff is there directly to the spiritual world. So all the actions what we do in this so we have certain desires, so we have been influenced by certain modes, so we get a different certain kind of body, and we tend to do certain activities. And if we just keep doing that activities will result to another kind of results, and by then we are influenced by some kind of modes, and then we take, so this cycle of birth and death keeps on going. When we have this consciousness and understanding, we understand that okay, I am more being influenced by this particular mode, how to get to a higher mode, and finally to the mode of transcendence. So this understanding we need to consciously develop, and develop detachment from the material world, cut our attachment from the material world, and then only it is possible to get stuck to the attachment of the spiritual requirements or spiritual goals and aspirations. So the next third and fourth shloka, it tells how to develop, how to cut the attachment for this material world. What is the process of cutting the attachment from this material world? Sudha Mataji.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandat Pranam.
Dandavats.
न रूपमस्येह ततोपलभ्यते नान्तो न चादिर्न च सम्प्रतिष्ठा अश्वत्थं मेनं विरूढमूलम् असङ्गशस्त्रेण दृढेन चित्वा ततः पदं तत्परिमार्गितव्यं यस्मिन् गता न निवर्तन्ति भूयः तमेव चाद्यं पुरुषं प्रपद्ये यतः प्रवृत्ति प्रसृता पुराण. Mataji, translation also.
Yes.
Translation by Divine Srila Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. The real form of this tree cannot be perceived in this world. No one can understand where it ends, where it begins, or where its foundation is. But with determination, one must cut down this strongly rooted tree with the weapon of detachment. Thereafter, one must seek that place from which, having gone, one never returns, and there surrender to that Supreme Personality of Godhead, from whom everything began and from whom everything has extended since time immemorial.
Okay, so see, now we should understand that our existence in this material world is not of today, yesterday. It is since time immemorial. And it is also said that suppose today we have got some attraction towards scriptures, toward the process of Krishna consciousness, towards the process of Bhakti Yoga. Today, if we have got some appreciation and some kind of inclinations towards this process, it really clearly means that there is something that we have done. There is a mercy of the Supreme Lord also, and it has been carried over from the previous life. Because it is very clear that we get a life based on our desires, our actions, our karma, our inclinations. Based on that only we get a next life. So in this life, if we have this kind of inclinations, that means we had developed some kind of inclinations in the previous life, like that. Otherwise, it's very difficult. The second thing is, we should understand this existence what we have is time immemorial, and we need to consciously understand, have a knowledge about the eternal place and position, and where we can go, and what is the process of going there, and then that is the way we can cut the attachment from this material world. So real form cannot be perceived. No one can understand where it ends, where it begins, but with determination. For this, as Rupa Goswami says, that utsaha nishchaya dhairyat, that is, we should have enthusiasm and we should have strong determination. Only because this is not a 1-2 day process. It is not a process of 1 day or 2 days. See, if you compare to eternity, one lifetime is like nothing. Like somebody had told, in a sheet of paper, if you draw a line, and if you take a very sharp pencil and put a dot on this line, our life is like that dot. This whole line represents that incessant lives which we had before and innumerable lives which we can have next. So in the series of birth, old age, death, disease, we have gone from one birth to another birth. In that whole lifetime, one dot is like this lifetime. So if we see as eternity, then we understand that this lifetime is actually negligible. In just this lifetime, we have to be very conscious and perfect our life. That is one way of understanding. Another way of understanding, if we zoom in into this one particular lifetime, if we just zoom in, then we have quite few years, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 years, if we say, suppose is the average life. Then if we say 70 years, then in 70 years, then 70 years, then every day is there and morning is there. So that way, consciously being attached to this process, working towards this process with determination becomes very important. Without determination, today we may think something, tomorrow we may not be able to do. We may be able to do a week, a month, then we may not be able to continue. We may be able to do for a year, 2 years, then we may not be able to do it because of different associations. Many things can happen. When we zoom in into this one single lifetime, then we understand that only with the determination, with the association, with the prayers, with constant meditation, it is possible to be on the right track in this entire, in one lifetime at least, because we are constantly attacked by our modes, by our nature. We have a psychophysical nature, we have a natural and automatical attraction to certain things, and if those things are not favorable for devotional service, we need to consciously be detached from those things. And that is not easy, because sometimes the psychophysical nature is so strong that we just cannot not do certain things even though they are not favorable. So for that, constant determination is required. And with that determination, if we approach this one particular life, which is just a dot compared to the eternity of life which we have, then we have achieved success, because that is the goal of our life actually. Yes, sir. Nandini Mataji.
Hare Krishna.
Yes, Mataji.
Purport by Srila Prabhupada. It is now clearly stated that in the real form of this banyan tree cannot be understood in this material world. Since the root is upwards, the extension of the real tree is at the other end. When entangled with the material expanse of the tree, one cannot see how far the tree extends, nor one can see the beginning of the tree. Yet, one has to find out the cause. I am the son of my father is the son of such and such a person, etc. By searching in this way, one comes to Brahma, who is generated by the Garbhodakashayi Vishnu. Finally, in this way, when one reaches the supreme personality of the Godhead, that is the end of the research work. One has to search out the origin of the tree, the supreme personality of Godhead, through the association of persons who are in knowledge of that supreme personality of Godhead. Then, by understanding, one becomes gradually detached from this false reflection of reality, and by knowledge, one can cut off the connection and actually become situated in the real tree. The word asanga is very important in the connection, because the attachment for sense enjoyment and lauding it over the material nature is very strong. Therefore, one must learn detachment by discussion of the spiritual science based on the authoritative scriptures, and one must hear from the persons who are actually in knowledge. As a result of such discussions in the association of devotees, one comes to the supreme personality of the Godhead. Then the first thing one must do is to surrender to him. The description of that place, whence having gone, one never returns to this false reflection tree, is given here. The supreme personality of the Godhead, Krishna, is the original root from whom everything has emanated. To gain the favor of that personality of Godhead, one has only to surrender, and this is a result of performing the devotional service by hearing, chanting, etc. He is the cause of the extension of the material world. This has already been explained by the Lord himself. Aham sarvasya prabhavaha. I am the origin of everything. Therefore, to get out of the entanglement of this strong banyan tree of material life, one must surrender to Krishna. As soon as one surrenders unto Krishna, one becomes detached automatically from this material extension. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So Prabhupada has very nicely told here that one thing I wanted to say here. Important to have constant regular association of devotees. Constant association of devotees and following guru, sadhu and shastras. Only because see, when we are in the middle of the tree, we don't know, we can't see the root also, we can't see the end also. Similarly, our life is also like that. We don't know the spiritual world. We have not seen the spiritual world. Or it is not even that we are happy in this material world. No, we don't know how many more lifetimes we have and where we started, where we are going to, and what is actually our destination. We don't know. We are in between. We are just stuck. But we have a path which has been told before us. We have the process of Krishna consciousness. We have the scriptures. We have the association of devotees. We have Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra to guide us. So, with determination, we need to think that this is the path which has been laid down. I am fortunate to have this path. By that, we can just get out from this whole cycle. We are just completely stuck in a loop like that. If you think of it as a loop, we are just round, round, round. We are just going round and round. To cut through, we need this. And another important thing is, one is with determination going through Guru, Sadhu, Shastra. Another one is after understanding what we understand, that we need to surrender to the Supreme Lord. We need to please the Supreme Lord. We have the choices at every moment. In every choice, every moment to moment, we have choice. In every choice, we need to take a choice that pleases Supreme Lord. It may be against my psychophysical nature. It may be against my desire. It may be against my whims and fancies. But I understand that this is what pleases Krishna. And I have the understanding that through Guru, Sadhu and Shastra, that by following that, my destination or my I will be in relationship with the Supreme Lord. I'll go back to Godhead. This understanding I have through knowledge, I have through association. But right now there is a choice by which I have to make a choice to please the Supreme Lord. Moment to moment choice, we decide to surrender to the Supreme Lord. The whole point is, first is understanding, having the knowledge. Second is being determined about it. And third one is important is to finally surrender to the understanding. Because we all have the understanding, we all have the knowledge. We all know morning we have to get up in Brahma Murta and chant. But finally with determination, and we have to surrender to the Supreme Lord, understanding on a day-to-day basis that today if I get up and chant the holy names, fully focusing on the Supreme Lord, the Lord will be pleased by me. And by doing this, it is possible for me to get out of this material world. Day in, day out, we need to think. For us, one life maybe seem to be little long, but compared to the eternity we have, this one life is nothing actually. So one life we need to surrender. One now, so from today, wherever we are in the age group, from whichever age group we are, if we determine and if we pray hard and if we surrender to the Supreme Lord, then day by day, we can make progress and eventually can be a part of the spiritual world. Okay, next, now Kishori Mataji.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandvat Pranam.
Dandavats.
Thank you Mataji. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Nirvana moha jita sanga dosha adhyatma nitya vinivruta kamaha dvande virmuktaha sukha dukha sangye gacchanyatamudaha padam vyayam tata. Mataji, should I read?
Mudha padam avyayam tat. Gachanti mudha.
Sorry Mataji.
Gachantya mudha padam avyayam tat.
Gacchantya padam avyayam tat. Am I right?
Translation. Yeah, translation.
Thank you Mataji. Translation: those who are free from false prestige, illusion and false association, who understand the eternal, who are done with material lust, who are freed from the duality of happiness and distress, and who unbewildered know how to surrender unto the Supreme Person, attain to that eternal kingdom.
Yeah. So here Krishna says that, see, now what we understood the description of the tree, and we understood how it's a reflection. And then we also understood that how to cut that tree, how to cut that attachment to the material world by association of devotees with the determination and surrendering to the Supreme Lord. So that we understood. So then, how in day-to-day life, how to how to surrender? Then how to surrender? What are the qualities which we need to have so that we will be able to surrender? So, see now these things Prabhupada, Krishna has repeatedly told here and there, everywhere it is there. See now if you see the 13th chapter, I think in the 13th of the 8 to 12 shlokas, these were the qualities that has been described. Had been described so that a person, how he can understand the knowledge of Kshetra and Kshetragna. In that concept, again, the 8 to 12, 20 qualities had been described. In the 14th chapter, what is the process, how to, what is the lakshana of a gunatita, or what is the process for attaining the position of a gunatita, or one who is transcendent material. Again, these qualities had been told. So now again, these qualities had been told. That is basically humility, tolerance, equanimity, free from false prestige, kama, moha, lobha, madha, matsarya. See, these are the basic qualities which we need to develop. And when we understand this, so that will bring us no attachment to this material world. So no attachment to material world means detachment from material world, not being excessively proud, excessively angry, excessively not being understanding that this is a temporary place and I don't have to get so much carried away by the situations or happenings of this material world. No, I don't have to get so much bothered also. Little here, there for my survival, I need to work, but I don't have to get carried away by that, because I know I need to get to the right destination. Like when we are driving, this example many times we have repeated, like in a heavy traffic road, when we are driving, we may be bothered by so many things that so many people will be fighting in between. Only some cycle wala is also there, another car fellow is also there, some is right, some are driving fast, some are slow, sometimes the signal is not. So many things are happening, but we understand that we don't have to get down of the car now and start fighting and making a scene and getting things right here, because why these things, why these people came in between my vehicle. We don't have to worry them that much. We just have to make our way through and reach the destination. So that is that is a little challenge when it comes to day in day out thing, because sometimes we feel that things are more smoother and things are happening. I think I am in the spiritual. I think in this lifetime I'll make it. I think I am Krishna conscious. Like that, it can happen, and it may be very soon. Some situation may come, and we overreact, or we react in such a way that we feel low about ourselves. That how, when I was thinking, apparently I was thinking that I am a great devotee today, I just ended up doing this. I don't know where I am standing. Lord, please help me, because if with this I'm losing my hope, please help me. So that kind of a surrender, that kind of a prayer, day in day out, it is required, so that we understand that every action of us is pleasing to the Supreme Lord, and that is the way we make our way to the spiritual world. We will read the last purport. Hema Malini Mataji.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Purport. The surrendering process is described here very nicely. The first qualification is that one should not be deluded by pride, because the conditioned soul is puffed up, thinking himself the lord of material nature. It is very difficult for him to surrender unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One should know by the cultivation of real knowledge that he is not Lord of material nature. The Supreme Personality of God, the Godhead, is the Lord. When one is free from delusion caused by pride, he can begin the process of surrender. For one who is always expecting some honor in this material world, it is not possible to surrender to the Supreme Person. Pride is due to illusion, for although one comes here, stays for a brief time, and then goes away. He has the foolish notion that he is the Lord of the world. He thus makes all things complicated, and he is always in trouble. The whole world moves under this impression. People are considering the land, this earth, to belong to human society, and they have divided the land under the false impression that they are the proprietors. One has to get out of this false notion that human society is the proprietor of this world. When one is freed from such a false notion, he becomes free from all the false associations caused by the familial, social, and national affections. These faulty associations bind one to this material world. After this stage, one has to develop spiritual knowledge. one has to cultivate knowledge of what is actually his own and what is actually not his own. And when one has an understanding of things as they are, he becomes free from all dual conception, such as happiness and distress, pleasure and pain. He becomes full in knowledge. Then it is possible for him to surrender to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Hare Krishna. Thank you,
Very
Mata.
clearly, Prabhupada has told. Then there is nothing more to tell. This is very clear that unfortunately we really feel that I am the controller, I am the Lord. We may have a small house, or we may have 10 houses, or we may have a big family, or we have a small family, or we may be leader in the temple, or we may be leader of the society. Somewhere we want that controllership. We feel that it is mine, it's me. I am the people have to listen to me. But we should understand that that is nothing big deal. The Lord is a supreme Lord. We have to surrender our life to the supreme Lord. In this material world, here, there, honor, desire, if we get caught up with that, and if we come into illusion, and then I am the Lord, I am the indestructible personality, everybody has to respect me, and too much we are behind name fame, it becomes very difficult to get out, because the mind does not allow to surrender at all. Only when we are simple, only when we actually understand that I am nothing, we actually understand, not even just telling, only that the mind will remain peaceful. Only when the mind remains peaceful, then there is question of understanding, yes, Lord is the supreme. Every moment, Lord only is the supreme. Everything, Lord is the controller. I'm just an actor, I'm just an instrument. I'm just need to do the needful based on certain situations in a certain society. I'm there in a social position. Certain things we need to act as though we are doing everything, but we should not get attached to it. We should not get attached to the results. We should not get attached to the position. All this, when we are getting attached, what happens is mind gets absorbed in this, and mind does not allow to surrender to the Supreme Lord. Only when we are actually free, we don't have to tell anybody. For ourselves, if we actually have a great understanding, then it becomes easier for us to surrender. When we understand surrender, that surrender becomes easy only when the mind is peaceful. And for that, we should understand our actual position, that we are not the proprietor of anything. It's only the Supreme Lord who is the actual proprietor. We are all eternally his servants. Okay, Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai Jai.
Thank you, Mataji.
Thank you,
Hare
Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Dandavad.
Hare Krishna.
Hare
Dandavad
Krishna.
Pranam.
Prabhupada ki jai.
Srila Prabhupada ki jai. We will log out.
Thank you, Mataji. Dandavat Pranam.
Yes,
Dandavad.
Mataji. Hare Krishna, Dandat Pranam, Mataji.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you all. Somebody is logging in the name of ICF. Mataji, Kannada session, Mataji. Sorry.
Yes, Mataji. Okay.
I'll just sign out. You have to log in again, Mataji. Sorry.
Yeah. Okay, it's okay.
Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna. Dandat Pranam.